important things happen in other parts of the country, don't just rely on the national media. Go and see what their local paper is saying. It's just a few clicks, it's just a few more keywords in your Google search, and you can find out what the people in that community who understand it well are thinking. And lastly, support the media you value. We do have concerning media sources in our country, but we still have good ones and we want to keep them here. So if there's media you use regularly, see what you can do to support that. This is work. It's something that's not simple, but as Walter Cronkite would say, that's the way it is. And so if we want to be part of preserving our democracy and fulfilling the promise of a more perfect union, it's work we need to be engaged in. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Maddie, thank you so much. We appreciate your comments and wonderful suggestions. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So, all right. At this point, I would entertain a motion for accepting the minutes and the approval of the agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes.
I'll second the motion.
A second from Ernesto. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion from anyone? All in favor? Aye.
So do we need our mics on or not?
Yes.
Yes.
You want to be heard in the room.
In the room? Okay.
So mics on, but.
Let's try that.
Okay.
All right. Okay, let's try that again. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There we go. Tom was a little slow there, but that's all right.
My mic was off.
Motion carries. All right. Our 2021 regular meeting schedule are the first and third Tuesdays at 5:30, and our next meeting will be March 16th of this month. All right. Question and comments for the mayor and council has been suspended due to the limit on the number of attendees in the council chambers. It's nice to see the council chambers relatively full. So again, thank you all for coming. Please email your comments and questions to teresa.harris@loganutah.org, who will distribute them to the mayor and to the council members. We have had quite a few emails this week, so I hope you all received the emails that the mayor and that Teresa forwarded. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'll let you know I'll be out of town for the 16th.
For the 16th? All right. We will survive without you somehow, Tom. Yeah, somehow. Thank you for that
So Mark, do
information.
you want to say anything about the new microphones?
We could. Yes. So we, yeah, we'll wait a moment. There we go. So, in response to some difficulties hearing during our meeting, especially online, on Facebook Live and on our YouTube channel, and possibly even on the Valley channel, we have installed some new microphones up here. So the microphones are just right up above, and I assume that since they're green, that they are on, and when they are red, they are off. And so everyone who is in the council chamber, even if you're muttering under your breath, it will probably be picked up by these very sensitive microphones and be shared with everyone who is watching. So we encourage you to keep your snide comments to yourselves.
Same with the audience.
Yes, council included. And so just so that you're all aware that the microphones are very sensitive, and whatever you say will probably be heard by someone. Keep it to yourself, unless you want everyone to hear it. How about that? Yes, or you could be canceled, according to Tom. So, but again, we really appreciate you all being here, and it's wonderful to be back together in council. So, Mayor, you're up next.
And just to note, we've decided not to wipe microphone and podium between each speaker, so we will encourage the speakers to use some of the hand sanitizer here afterwards, so everyone sort of takes care of themselves. But tonight I would like to have Greg Cox come forward. As you know from a few weeks ago when we ratified the new Human Resources Director to be, her appointment, Ambry Darley, who is on the back row. We just wanted to thank Greg as he retires this next week for his 15 years of excellent service to the city, for his hard work and dedication. He has been a fixture that, has, met with, served all, 430-ish employees through the city. So we do really appreciate his dedication and just wanted to maybe give him a round of applause, a recognition in front of council, and say thank you.
And I think we should also
Make any parting remarks?
What's that?
Do you want to make any parting remarks or just wave?
No, not really. I appreciate Mayor Daines, when COVID came out. I should have retired a year ago because this last year's been very heavy. But one thing that happened when COVID came out, I appreciate Mayor Daines was most concerned about me. And I appreciate that. I think she told the whole city, stay away from him. We don't want him to get sick. I got sick anyway. I got COVID last November. So anyway, I appreciate her and the other mayors that I've worked for. It's been a good 15 years. Thanks.
Enjoy the golf course.
Yes.
I think the revenue is going to go up at the golf course.
And he's going to have to find new paths to walk.
That's right. Item 6B under Mayor Report, I'm going to turn the time over to Paul Lindhart, our Public Works Director. We have so many transportation capital projects going on that we thought it would be appropriate just to give council and the public an update on what is going on, let them know the status. We have some land acquisitions that are going on to make projects happen, so appreciate the good work they do, and Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. It is good to be here with you. Again, appreciate your time, and I'll try to keep it brief. As we discussed, updates to projects or capital projects, this isn't all of them. It was more of the ones that are current or maybe more prevalent in people's minds currently. So I won't have every specific answer, but please interrupt me if you have questions. I'll kind of go through the ones we felt appropriate to update you on. We're, as you're aware, currently working on an update to our transportation master plan. We had put a big effort last year into some virtual open houses. They were honestly probably more successful than we expected, both in attendance and comments received, so that was very good. Public open house, stakeholder meetings, things like that. We're currently working on gathering all the data needed for that master plan, processing that, and then there will be a draft version that we will present. And currently we're thinking, rather than holding another open house just to respond, we'll put responses to those comments and the things that have been received available on the website, Facebook, and those sort of, make it available as opposed to trying to do another virtual open house or otherwise.
When is that draft expected?
We're hoping to have a draft for review late summer and have it completed before fall would be the idea. They originally bumped their schedule back to almost December, and we said we need to speed that up more closer to summer, so that's what we're working on right now. That big one has been gained a lot of attention lately, 1400 North, 600 West intersection. Last year, we spent a year and a half almost reconstructing that entire intersection. There was a lot of underground work that took place that is not near as glamorous or visual, but makes a project last a lot longer. Big storm drain, big sewer lines, and then we added a traffic signal as well. That project is all but completed. There will be a few punch list items taken care of this spring. Unfortunately, with the exception of the railroad crossing that has drawn all the attention lately. There's been a large amount of effort put into keeping that railroad crossing open and safe, even with not being able to make the improvements right now that we would like to do. Maybe a small update on that. UDOT is currently having meetings with Union Pacific to try and address the issue there. We've obviously had an issue with the contract that they sent us regarding maintenance fees and the annual assessment of those maintenance fees, how that's being done. So we are working through that. I'm not very optimistic, but it's possible there could be a resolution shortly. UDOT and Union Pacific had a very long meeting today. UDOT is pushing, hoping, saying, let these projects that Logan City has in the works proceed and not be held hostage to this idea while we work out the bigger issue of maintenance fees. We're hoping that'll happen, but again, I'm not that optimistic. And if that doesn't, it could take a while. But we at least have a functioning intersection that we believe is safe at this point. It took a while to get there, and we apologize for that. We were operating that signal in a non-traditional way, but we got it. Because of that railroad issue, we've had to reshuffle the years we were hoping to do a lot of these big projects. So that's part of the reason for this update. 1800 North, 600 West would be very similar to the 1400 North project and intersection improvements. We were hoping, and we are ready to do that this year, but we are not going to put it out to bid with the Union Pacific issue because it also has railroad improvements with it. So that is now just waiting for that resolution. Once we have that, we'll put that out to bid and go with it. 1000 North from Main to 200 West is the project we are trying to move up a little to take the place of 1800 North on our schedule. The design is almost complete, and we are now working through property acquisition on that. We were hoping to get that to build this year. I don't think property acquisition will be done in time, so we would anticipate starting that project this coming winter to next spring with those improvements. Those of you who've been on the council for a while are familiar with the process we've gone through to determine what that scope of that project is. And there was some concern from some of the residents, since it's taken a while, and they are new move-ins, and there's a lot of changeover, that we have not talked about that project ever. And so it's partially why we wanted to give an update. So you're aware of where we are if you receive emails. We are currently acquiring property on that project. 100 West from 600 South to the highway, so over the Logan River. Similar, the design is almost all but complete. We're currently doing property acquisition on that project as well with some of the commercial businesses to the south end. We applied in 2020, this past fall, for $2.6 million from the COG, and we were awarded that. That was phase one of our application, and we are currently working with the CMPO and COG to determine when the best time is for a phase two application to fully fund that project.
Well, some of the listeners might not know what COG is, could you?
It is the Cache County Council of Governments,
Council of Governments, yeah.
and the members are all the mayors within the county that run that. And they, if I understand correctly, the COG oversees the application and award of certain pots of money through the CMPO and county, if that's fair. Another one is, and now I'm kind of getting out of just our local road projects, UDOT is anticipating a complete rebuild of Main Street from basically property line to property line. It'll be a very large project from the South Y all the way to at least 1000 North. They've been working with us for several years on the timing of that, and they anticipate 2025 is the year they'd like to build that. We recently learned that they changed funding cycles for the project, so it may bump it 1, possibly 2 years. But 2025, 2026 would be the anticipated time frame of that. And we are just now starting in the data gathering, survey, and design work of that project. And we will work, because we, along with that project, will be replacing most of our utilities in Main Street. So it'll be a very, very busy summer if you come anywhere near downtown with construction.
So Paul, at that point in time, will hopefully the 200 West project be completed so that there'll be a bypass to Main, or will that one?
That is a hope that the 100 West project will be completed, correct. UDOT would like that, and that is what we're hoping to do. I didn't say that, but depending on the timing of that phase two application on 100 West, we would anticipate probably a 2023 construction
Okay.
for that. Thank you. Another project the mayor has mentioned is a possible underpass, pedestrian underpass under Main Street at 600 South, right adjacent to the Logan River. We've completed a feasibility study, and it came out good. It's very expensive, but doable, which is the best we could hope for. We're currently working to submit a grant application to UDOT, because they are very favorable and in support of that project as well, to apply for some TIF funds. And we're very optimistic on that funding and other funding opportunities we're working for on that. And again, UDOT would encourage and would like, if that goes through, that it is completed before the Main Street project. So that'd likely be within the next 4 to 5 years.
Paul, does the road need to be raised in order to accomplish that, or can you just tunnel through there?
Our plan would mostly be to go under. The road is more driven by that bridge deck. There's not much asphalt on top of the concrete bridge deck, so we wouldn't want to add to that. And I added to my list right before this meeting, because I got an email. I thought some might be interested. UDOT has been working to manipulate funds towards the 3200 South project out by Ted's service. And we just got an email today that said the exchanging of the money is finally complete. So they're now moving forward, hope to have the environmental document complete by September and under construction by next spring on that intersection. So that's good news that we've been working towards.
So
And
do
there will
they
be,
acquire property from Ted's?
no,
No?
So it's still kind of that, you're gonna close on, it's gonna
Correct.
go around it.
if you remember, we looked at alternatives 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
It would still be going with that alternative 2 that goes around the east side and avoids Ted's property.
Okay.
And blocks that access point then off from 89, correct?
Correct, yep. And as part of the environmental on that, there will be a public comment period on those alternatives and all that. That would be coming this summer. And lastly, the Logan River Watershed Project is not a transportation project, but I thought it was be a good one to update on, because there's been a lot of publicity regarding that. The Crockett Canal Company had done a study on the possibility of pressurizing the canal system. Through that study, it was found to be feasible and had a lot of positive benefit. Because of that, there was an application made. The applicant is the Cache Water District with co-applicants of Logan City, Hyde Park City, North Logan City,
And the canal company.
and the Canal Company, thank you, for an NRCS grant towards that project. And they were awarded the grant, so we are now starting the environmental phase of studying the possibility.
So they were awarded the first part.
Correct.
of the total grant.
They phased it out to likely 3 phases.
Yeah.
And originally applied for the whole thing, did not get that, reapplied for just a portion. And a portion was $21 million application, we're awarded that. So that would be just the first phase, including the environmental, the design, and then a portion of the construction. The reason I mention it is currently open for what they call in the NRCS process as a public scoping meetings and public scoping comment. So the comment period is open until March 16th. It was originally earlier, but it's been extended through the 16th. I encourage anybody to get on. You can find a link to the webpage for that on our Logan City Facebook page. I looked, and it's right now about 3 posts back is all, so you don't have to scroll too far to find it. But it would just be pressurization. There's been information distributed saying that there's already a project selected, we're already moving forward, that the Logan River will be piped completely and drained, and I just want to, I guess, reassure you that the current process is they're just beginning to look at even the scoping, and there are no proposed alternatives at this point. That would be forthcoming.
So where does the Crockett one run?
There will also be a scoping meeting, another
This Thursday.
scoping meeting this Thursday, and it will be on Zoom. So if you are interested in going to that, either Paul or I could send you the link for that.
This Thursday at 6 p.m., and if you go to the Logan City Facebook page, that same meeting has all the data you need to join that there as well.
It will be exactly the same as the other two that they've already had. They are not allowed to change their spiel or whatever because it's an NRCS grant.
Correct.
So it's less informative than you might think. Sorry.
That's fair. Those are the projects I was going to update you on tonight.
So Paul, do
Any
you have
questions?
any idea, I've heard rumblings and chats and, we had someone talk to us about turns on SR 30. Do you know when they plan on starting work on that?
You said in turns on SR 30?
Yeah, they did the,
Yeah, whether it was gonna be that loop-de-loop.
Now I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Where you go like a scissor backwards.
And this
My
way,
understanding is they would be looking at spring 23 to start construction on that.
so everything's gonna be under construction in the
Yes.
20s. Yay.
Absolutely. They're currently doing design and property acquisition on that as well.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
So when do we apply for sabbaticals?
Right now. Is there anything I can answer or anything else?
I think you've answered. Thank you so much.
More than you wanted me to.
Yeah, thank you for the information, especially on the Logan River project, so great to have that. The canal company's kind of stuck with what they have. I mean, they can't take more,
That is correct.
so they can't take more water than what they've got. I mean, they've only got a certain amount of shares.
They don't use all the water they
No,
have.
so they can turn a lot back in, so, yeah.
Correct. It's not a water right acquisition project. It's just looking at other ways to use it, I guess.
And they're looking at efficiencies.
Correct.
I'm very familiar with the canal project behind my house, and they pressurized that. I mean, it's not really pressurized, but it's piped, and we have more water than we had before with a much, much smaller pipe and less loss, and trees didn't die, and, everything worked, so it's amazing.
Just a silly question, but if it's going to be much more efficient using less water because it's a pipe, where will that extra water go?
Can I say?
Absolutely.
You guess?
So the Crockett Avenue Irrigation Company has a certain geographic boundary that they are able to serve. And that geographic boundary has slowly but surely become less and less agricultural and more houses. So part of this project that's quite exciting would be that they would expand secondary water availability to their entire geographic district, which would mean that you or me, if we're in the district, could have secondary water put in the street and available to our houses.
Instead of
Culinary water.
Yeah, okay.
So that's a very positive part of this whole project. It's gonna be, they don't know whether that's the project they're gonna do or not, or whether something else is much more capable of managing floodwaters, which is the basis for all of this.
And that question was actually brought up in the Woodruff neighborhood meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, that it'd be wonderful if we could get pressurized secondary water for some of those areas. So this is a possibility.
Sadly, Woodruff is not.
They're not in that
project.
area, but I mean, yeah, but for other parts of the city, that might be a possibility. Okay, that's exciting.
Thank you.
But that's a lot of money
Yeah.
down the road.
Yeah.
It is.
If they did it.
It'd be, maybe we'll do it in 2023.
Oh, I think 25 is
It is years down the road, that is correct.
Paul, thank you so much for your
Thank you
time
very much.
and your expertise and the work that you do. So hopefully no more railroad crossings for a while, so. All right, moving on to council business. Vice Chair Simmons, do you have an update for us on the Planning Commission?
Yes, Planning Commission met last Thursday, and one of the items will be a workshop item for us today, so I won't go into that one. It's a rezone request, and they also approved an addition to the 8th and Main building, which will cover up what is currently the outdoor storage on the west side. The design looked really nice, and I think that it will add a great deal to the look of that space. And lastly, I know that over time we've been talking about the Kunzler property on 10th West. And that property now has a rather large housing project that is proposed to go in there. And the Planning Commission delayed their decision for 2 weeks because they, my sense was from listening to them that they felt like it was a lot to digest. Because there's a lot of wetland issues and there are a lot of other issues that go along with that particular piece of property that are challenging and they had a lot of public comment. That's it.
That's it.
Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Yes, Tom.
While we are speaking, just like we do at the microphone, may I suggest that we remove a mask so that everybody can hear more clearly?
I think that's a great suggestion. Mayor, thank you for reminding me that every time we use the mic, we should make sure and use the hand sanitizer. And you are welcome to take your mask off while you're speaking.
Can I?
As an example. It's hard to remember, you know, it's like it really is.
So can I ask Jeannie a question about this
Please,
Kunzler?
yes.
So I know when we approved the annexation of this, the understanding was it was going to be a conservation easement, and there were some requirements for, you know, water mitigation studies. Have all of those been completed? Is that something the Planning Commission is looking at, or what's the status of that? Because that's I would think that's a huge floodplain issue over there.
I do not know whether the Planning Commission has had access to those reports or if they've been completed. Mike might be a better person or Russ to ask that question of because I don't know the answer. It was not clear during the presentation that that had been done, in my opinion. So.
I'll just admit I was a little startled to see that coming forward as a residential project because I thought that was going to end up being mostly conservation easement.
Well, originally when when the annexation came to us, we had a large conservation easement in process for that particular piece of property, but it has since changed, and someone is trying to buy the property and wants to put 135 houses down there, so.
Actually, the discussions about the conservation easement really just started about a year ago. So the property did come in.
January of 2019.
And so I think it was probably shortly after that we started to work on the easement. So
Oh, I thought we were already working on the easement before that.
I'll go back and check my dates.
Okay.
Good question. Yeah, very good.
Do you want, if you really want an answer, I don't know whether.
I'll follow up with the planning.
Okay.
Thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. All right, we had discussed last meeting, continuing our voting systems discussion, and during the meantime, I reached out to each of you individually, and we discussed from here moving forward by finding some comparable cities to do some research with. And so we have, I've identified some cities. I'm open for more options as well too. Each of you have submitted some questions that we can build a questionnaire that would be consistent across the board, depending on what type of system these cities have. So I'm open for suggestions from you on how we can move forward. If you want to pick a city, or we might have a thumb fight up here like we did a couple months ago, or whatever we'd like to do. But
I'm more than happy if you just assign them.
I can assign. I know there's some relationships that we have built with Provo that would be good, I think, to utilize. I know Amy and Jeannie, you both have done that. But I've got my list of cities here that we can take. I think we can always add more to it. Tom has some cities that he's done some research on around the country that are similar.
I went through, one of the best or most unique things about our city is that we're a college town. That's what has created a lot of the good things, but also some challenges. So I went through the best college towns and I tried to find cities that were close in our population and also the student population. You want me to quickly read
Yes,
those?
please, Tom.
And I won't go through the numbers, but they're all within 5,000 or 10,000 of Logan. And Logan was included on there as number 34, just so you know. Bozeman, Montana, Flagstaff, Arizona, San Luis Obispo, California. Going too fast.
You're good.
Grand Forks, North Dakota. Bloomington, Indiana, Lafayette, Indiana. Manhattan, Kansas. Binghamton, New York. Burlington, Vermont. Charlottesville, Virginia. Corvallis, Oregon. Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Ames, Iowa. And Ithaca, New York. Woo-hoo!
There you go.
Cornell.
Awesome. Will you forward that list to me?
I will.
That would be great, because I think it would be nice to research some of those and see what voting systems they use, and maybe get some more information from some other areas. We'll try and avoid the California one if possible. So,
I also have 7 or 8 questions that I'll write down and send to you.
Yeah, so I think we can still assemble more questions, and maybe we can do that this week. Do you have like a timeline you'd like to try and do this? If we like pick a city tonight, we all take one, maybe we can take 2, maybe we can pick a couple extras so we all maybe end up with 2 when we're done, so we could like maybe do 10 cities and try and gather some information. How much time do we need to do that?
Well, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
I sent you my questions sorry.
We like
I
to see
sent
your
you my,
face.
I'm so used to wearing a mask at work. I sent you my questions last night,
Yes.
but who is the ideal person? I think we should clarify that at the council that we speak to. Do we just randomly look at city, are we contacting the chair of their councils? I think for me, it would be helpful to kind of work our way so we're all consistent with
I've
that.
thrown out mayor, council member, possibly city recorder, or person who runs the elections.
The equivalent would be the best
Would be the
person.
best person, but it's also kind of nice to get some information from a counselor that's like been part of it. I mean, I'm chair of their council, and the person who's running the elections might be 2 good people to
And
visit
I
with.
think, reading through the reports, and some of the comments were related to ease of running for office, the number of candidates. And I think some of those questions might not be easily answered by a recorder, but would probably be better answered by somebody who had actually run underneath that system.
I really like the idea that we find some cities that have made a transition in the last maybe 10 years and see how that transition has worked for them, if that's something we want to investigate as well too. So I'm open. What would you like to do?
Well, I'm thinking if we want a recorder perspective and elected representative, we're probably talking to 2 different people in a city. So if we're assigned a city, I think we should talk to both, try as best we can to talk to both of those positions. Otherwise, we're kind of, it's going to be hard to be consistent.
If we can't get a chair, maybe we just get someone on the council, but then also the person who's in charge of
the
elections. Do you like that?
Yeah, and, if we pick 2 cities or 3 cities, off the various lists, and then we send you questions, you compile and make it.
And I can
And
filter.
then send it back to us, and maybe, I won't be here the 16th, if you want to do it the 2 weeks after that.
I think we can probably get the questions assembled and kind of even get started on this,
Yeah.
sooner, and we can maybe get the ball rolling a little bit faster. Jeannie, what would you suggest? Do you like that idea?
I'm fine with it. I think that you're gonna have to give us a month.
Yeah,
I think it's a fair amount of time.
Yeah, at least a month to make those connections and take the time. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have a 9-to-5 job, but most of the rest of you do.
Yes.
And that makes it a little more challenging.
The sooner we can put the questions together, the faster we can get at it, but I think
if we do the first meeting in April,
then you'll be back.
I'll be back.
That's
And then we
perfect.
assign on the 1st of April? Is that what you're saying?
No, we'll assign cities tonight, maybe add some more to it, but we'll
We
like,
don't have the questions.
we're gonna assemble the questions like this week, and then we can kind of filter through those.
We'll send out a
Yeah,
question.
yeah. I don't think we need to meet as a council to talk about the questions.
Well, no, I didn't think that. I was just sort of thinking that, you know, it might be that you take the questions that
Yeah.
we've given you, and the next meeting, we choose the cities, and we have a month from then.
I think we can choose, I'm okay choosing tonight if you're,
I'm
Yeah,
ready.
I'd rather,
I can assign you one tonight.
I'd rather not get to wait another 2 weeks.
I think like the first April, was it April 4? April 6th,
To try to come back.
to try and come back with data.
Responses.
Yeah, with the data, and we can kind of discuss that as we go. I think this week I'm motivated enough, we can put some questions together. I can get those back to you and let you approve.
Let's
and
pick
then we
2
go
cities.
forward. So, both of you were involved with Provo.
I'm happy to reach out to Shannon, or if you want to, she needs. Yeah.
So you'll
Okay,
take
yeah,
Provo.
I'll take Provo.
Ernesto, do you have a favorite? Out of the ones, we talked about, for at-large cities, Draper, Lehigh, and Orem. Orem probably is the largest of all those that's still at-large, so they're like 100,000 population, I think, so I would definitely like to see Orem. For districts, we've got Riverton and Murray, and for a hybrid system with at-large and districts, we've got Provo, Ogden, and Sandy.
I'll take Ogden.
You would like to take Ogden? Anybody want to fight Ernesto for Ogden? No? Tom, do you have a favorite?
Well, I was thinking of Bozeman and my old hometown, Ithaca, New York. These are both major college towns. One has 13,000 students and the other has 27.
I would like to find out what their system is first, so you don't have like two that are both at large.
Bozeman's at large. I don't know Ithaca.
Ithaca, so that's a possibility. Bozeman has a university too, don't
But
they?
all of these have
All of our
universities.
Nice, okay.
These were all college towns.
Do you want to do Bozeman for now? And then will you check on Ithaca, and that could be a good second choice for you.
Yep.
All right, awesome. Do you have a preference?
I'm happy to do Orem, and I would be happy to do one of the college towns if we decide we want to
Okay.
expand.
I think it would be very, very beneficial. So if Tom sends that over to me, I would be happy to find out what their voting systems are and then shoot another one over to you.
Yeah, just
That
shoot me a
work?
different one then.
Okay.
At
Yeah,
large,
I think
so.
that's really good. I'm most interested in hybrids, so I think I would probably like to look at Sandy as well too. And we need a straight up district one, so
Just assign, I'm happy to talk to anybody.
yeah. Do you want to do Riverton or Murray?
Which one do you want me to do?
I like Riverton.
Riverton?
Yeah.
Okay.
I played Little League Baseball World Series in Riverton, so we'll keep them. I have good memories there, so, okay.
So you have,
Ernesto.
I mean, with that choice, what do we have?
Yeah.
I've got an at-large, Amy's got a
You've got an at-
district and a mix.
Tom has an at-large, and you have an at-large. Ernesto has a hybrid, and I'll probably throw another city that's not in Utah, one of the college towns, towards you, Ernesto, if that's okay. And then you have a district and a hybrid.
Okay.
And I've got a district and a hybrid.
Okay.
So that gives us good balance.
As a secondary, I'll see which one Manhattan, Kansas has populations very close
Very close.
to ours.
I like that.
But they don't have mountains.
All right. You okay with that plan, Ernesto? All right. Thank you. Amy, thank you for your suggestions.
You're
And
welcome.
Jeannie, thanks for your willingness to participate. Tom?
Of
Okay.
course.
Let's go with that plan, and we'll move forward, and we'll hopefully have more data by the 6th of April, when Tom's back. That gives us enough time to put that all together. I'll have some questions to you for this week. Unless, Mayor, you want to participate too?
Well, I think it'll be nice, it'll be a lot easier if we're all asking the same
Yes,
question.
I didn't want you to feel left out, so.
Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to participate. I think this is some vital data for us to accumulate and add to what we've already been given, so I think that's great. Okay, let's move on to our action items. Continued from February 16th, we have the renewal rezone. City Planner Russ Hawley, are you going to share a little information with us on that one too?
Yeah, I'm here to provide a quick refresher, a long refresher, or I can simply sit down. So whatever the council would like. Do you want me to go back through the slides really quick for everyone?
It might be helpful for people watching, maybe not all of the slides,
Yeah.
but just,
How many people are here to comment on that? How many people are here to comment on the renewal rezone?
They all raise their hands at once.
Yes, nobody hold back.
Is
Okay.
the proponent?
He is
Yes.
here. Yeah, but he doesn't have to say anything unless he would
I
like
just
to.
was wondering. I said,
Okay, let's do the medium presentation,
Okay.
not the long version, yeah.
or at least just the map of where it is.
Yes, let's give it, or the short but informative, how about that, Russ?
Perfect. Okay, so the corner of 100 West and 3rd South is the project site. It's 1.7 acres in total, 8 existing parcels. There are 1 commercial structure and 5 residential structures on the property. The current zoning for this area is mixed. 5 of the properties are zone MR12, which is a multifamily residential zone. 3 of the properties are zone commercial, which is a commercial zone. And the application is a proposal to mixed use. And the future land use plan calls out the entire block as commercial. Mixed use is similar to commercial in the sense of commercial land use is allowed, restaurants, offices, etc. Some of the differences are the densities. There's a little bit higher density with the mixed use. There's a bonus that allows up to 40. And it's mandatory to have both commercial and residential in the mixed use zone.
How does the bonus work? Because you always talk about the bonus. Is that, did they put more commercial on the main floor, they can do more residential up on top? Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So there's a minimum commercial required for base MU zoning. If they provide additional ground floor commercial on the entire street level, then there's eligibility for a bonus
Okay,
up to 10 units per acre.
thank you.
Commercial zoning doesn't have to be residential. It can be purely commercial. There is an option for some residential, but it's secondary in nature. Mixed use is a little bit taller. You can go up to 58 feet tall versus 40 feet tall. And it's a little tighter for setbacks, so you know you're going to see a more dense urban type of pattern. We received a handful of comments, some in favor, some against. And there's my medium refresher. Any questions?
Awesome.
And Planning Commission, what was their,
They were in favor, so they sent a recommendation unanimously in favor of the rezone request.
Craig, since we had a public hearing last time, do we do another public hearing this time?
Closed the public hearing last time, and I think it was just continued as an action item last time.
We closed the public hearing last time, so we don't need to do a public hearing again. Awesome. Council, more discussion? I'm open for a motion.
A few things.
Yes.
One of the reasons I made a motion for continuation was because of the letter we received from Jeff Matthews, who owns the Beehive Grill. I met with Jeff for actually about 2 hours, and I went through the details of his letter, and he seemed to be satisfied with it. He was mostly concerned with the parking, and I had, although the plan is not on the table right now. It's just the zoning. But I have seen the plan, and it shows that it contains the parking that's required, and that settled Mr. Matthews' objections. Some things he was concerned about Main Street, and we talked through that, and that's not something we can solve on this one. So I just wanted to report that, and I think he felt good about that.
So the questions that you had were answered then?
The question he had were answered.
Okay.
I went through First West, I went through Main Street, I went through the plan for downtown, other issues, compatibility things, and he seemed to be satisfied on that.
So we did receive an email from Debbie Treasure, was it yesterday or the day before, with some of those similar concerns. And I also did get a phone call from a citizen who had those same concerns about the parking and just was concerned that Logan City was going to sell some of its parking spaces to the project. I just wanted to make sure that those spots would still be available for events at the rec center and for overflow parking for the project, for the Beehive commercial and resident or restaurants there. So that's the input I've gotten, but it's hard. You look at, Debbie has some legitimate questions and concerns about traffic, which is similar to what Jeannie brought up when we met a couple of weeks ago. But on the other hand, when you look at what the current zoning is, I don't know that there's a huge difference between mixed use and the commercial and the multifamily zones, so.
Questions that I received were all about traffic also. And for me, looking at 3rd South, I go on 3rd South quite a bit. There's more traffic coming off of Maverick than is going to come off of this project. I mean, you think about how many cars hit Maverick on 3rd South. There's more traffic on that one little teeny commercial piece than is going to come off this whole project on both sides of Main Street.
So one question I have, if we do not rezone it to the mixed use, does it just stay as MR12 and commercial, or does it automatically become commercial based on the future land use plan?
Great question.
Stays what it is.
Good question.
But my concerns were about traffic. They weren't about parking, because I know that we have strict regulations on that. They really weren't about, commercial or anything like that, or even height, because they have to step back. But I understand too that traffic is something that just happens and we have to deal with it. But I often wish that we were able to be a little more proactive and a little less reactive. So I don't have any particular angst about rezoning it. I think it'll be a good project. I've seen the plans, but I did want to make sure that we thought about those things, because I think that they're going to get worse and worse and worse. And now we've loaded First West, which we say, okay, well, it's going to be like a great, nice, wonderful bypass street. We've now loaded it with 3 multifamily structures in 2 blocks. And that's a lot. It's a lot to load when you have the high school and the rec center and the baseball game and the football game and that, all that stuff. So I just want us to be aware that we have to pay attention to that.
It's a very valid concern that our citizens have brought forth.
Right.
So, very valid.
But like I said, I don't think, it was said if we zoned it commercial, there might be more cars. And that's true. And if you leave it MR12, you've got a bunch of houses that have been used as rentals, and they'll probably stay there. So it's part of progress, I guess.
In an overall sense, this type of project will reduce, in concept, it will reduce the traffic because people will have.
I like it that you said in concept.
everything's, because we don't know everybody's future trips. But if someone lives in one of these units and has within 600 feet, there's the rec center, there's theaters, there's banks, there's, all kinds of services. Whereas if somebody built a project, as I said, out in the cornfield someplace, then every time they have to do that, they have to get in the car and go 10-mile, 20-mile round trip. So in concept, the more mixed use that we do in this core center versus the exterior extremity, we will become more of a walkable city. I've been on a lot of webinars by Salt Lake City and others talking about planning, and they're talking about making cities like a 15-minute city or a 10-minute city. And that's a measurement for if you had to go do something, how long would it take you to do? And if you had a person living in the core center, within 2-3 blocks of what we call the core center street, they could do almost anything within a 10-15 minute walk. And I think that's an ideal if we can. I think Gina makes very good points about the traffic. But this is about zoning, and I talked to Russ today about the width of 300 South. We talked last week, Mayor, about getting a warrant for 300 South and for 100 West, because we will have 4 events. We have Paul Willie's project, Gene Needham's project, this project, and the continuation of 100 West, which will draw traffic. So we will need to start working on that now. If we're ready for a motion, I'll be glad to make it.
I would entertain a motion.
I will move that we accept or pass this, I think it's 2103.
2103, correct.
It's 2103.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Ready to vote on it? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next up, we've got budget adjustments for fiscal year 2020, 2021, appropriating Rich Anderson. You're up. I'll let you explain this here.
2 items to consider tonight. The first is a request to appropriate $11,400 from a CLEF grant that we receive each year from the state for library collection development. The next is a request to appropriate reserves for the purchase of an ambulance. This is out of our newly created EMS fund. So $207,600 for the purchase of a new ambulance. And anticipate the purchase of a new ambulance every year from
Is
here
that
on
how
out.
much the ambulance really costs?
$210,000. That's expensive.
They are not a comfortable ride either, Brad.
Depends on how you
comfortable.
Be aware of it. Rich, maybe you explained it before, but why do we need a new, is it you're replacing them every year?
Yeah, we'll be replacing one about every year. So anticipate that in the new budget that we'll pass for 2022 and then going forward. We'll have a replacement schedule, but that's about
They
how
get as
we'll
much,
replace
they,
it.
they have as many miles on them as many of the police cars do, I believe.
They could.
Over time. I think they get a lot, because they do a lot of transports out of the valley.
A lot of use.
And so I think that it's appropriate to plan on replacing them annually.
Thank you, Rich. It is a public hearing, so we will open that up for public comment. If you're here and you'd like to comment on this budget adjustment, you're welcome to come up. Make sure and use the hand sanitizer and sign in. Let us know who you are, and you're welcome to come up and make a comment.
Dr. Beryl Yost. I live on 100 East. And, oh, yes,
Thank you for using the hand sanitizer.
you should see how much lotion I put on after I clean my hands about 12 times a day. I'm here to say something positive. We need that 11,600 very much. I'm still part of the Friends of the Logan Library and have been from the inception. And with the new library coming, I know they're doing a lot of weeding and of books that have not been used in years, which is great, but that means they need to be replaced. And they need to have books that are going to be popular enough to be used. So I'm hoping that this is just one of many to come because we need more books. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Dr. Yost. There's no other comments. We'll bring it back to the council for action.
I would move acceptance of resolution 21-10.
I will second that.
Second. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries for resolution 21-10. Our next public hearing is consideration of proposed sale of real property owned by the city of Logan. Mayor Dates.
I will give you a quick background on that. The city, a number of years ago, purchased a large swath of property just east of Lundstrom Park that was going to be a city cemetery. As the years progressed, it was clear we still don't have a need for cemetery property for a number of years, and so we opted to do something different with that. And the sale of that was determined to go to the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. So back in 2016, we had conversations with the neighborhood about the disposition of that property and the fact that it was prime developable property, but there were also some areas that they wanted to be left as a natural area. So we compromised and we left a very substantial area that will become a park, just a natural park, kind of a natural area with some walking trails. And then there are some areas that will be sold for lots. And again, we negotiated with the neighbors. They wanted a lower density. We lowered that to NR4. That agreement was reached with the neighborhood, and the subdivision was sort of approved by everyone. There was a working group of council and neighbors and so on that put a lot of time into that. That was done back in 2016. That was inadvertently never recorded. Now, we probably could have just gone ahead and recorded it, but just to be completely transparent, we opted to go through the process again, to have the Planning Commission approve the subdivision, and we will be asking council to then, and again, that will be recorded. And then the next step is the code requires that if property over a certain amount is sold, we have to have a public hearing. Now, that is a mayoral function. The council does not need to approve that or vote on it, but we do need to have a public hearing so the public is aware. And again, we reached out to the neighborhood, the Hillcrest Neighborhood Council. Again, as part of moving ahead with the sale, we are also going to move ahead with the park, and we're starting to discuss some park plans, and we'll shortly schedule a meeting. So just so folks know, just to be transparent, we have gone through the entire public process again. And today we'll have the public hearing, and then, again, no vote is required, but just to let people know what we're planning. Thank you.
Holly, would you mind, I mean, I don't know that it's, well, you can say, do you have a process whereby they will be sold?
We are in the process of getting an appraisal right now, and it will be some sort of a public process. We haven't decided exactly what, but we certainly want to make sure everyone is aware. We will solicit bids. There will be some kind of a minimum bid based on the appraisal. As you know, property of this type is at a real premium in the city right now. There's a real demand for single-family housing. So we will put it out essentially to bid with a minimum price based on the appraisal we received.
And also, do we have, Russ, maybe you can say this just for the public, what percentage of the entire property will be park and what percentage will be housing and infrastructure?
Hey, you're putting me on the
Oh,
spot.
yeah, maybe Rusakina, do you remember the
He's
acreage
behind you.
of, I know, of the proposed Deer Pen Park?
Okay, but it's about 23 acres, both sides of 1500 North.
So about 23 acres of natural park area, some on the south side of 1500 North, some on the north side.
And then
So
you've got 1, 2, 3, 4,
22
22
building
lots, so
at
that's,
about a quarter acre each.
so that's,
Double park.
it's not quite 11 acres, so
Yeah.
we're doing less than, so it's
Less than
2/3,
half.
1/3,
9 acres.
9 acres.
That's
So it's
close.
2/3, 1/3.
And on the map, you can see some areas that go east, so there will be some connections that go up to the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. You see the far north end of the map. Again, we will also improve the crossing on 15th East as part of the trail connection that will connect the two. So again, we'll ask for neighborhood input as we further refine the park plans. We do have a concept plan that we've already discussed with them as part of the proposal back in 2016, but we anticipate some money in the budget to move ahead with that this year.
But it is nice to have that much park space remaining, so that'll be really nice for the neighborhood, for the community.
Exactly, open space. And this is not going to be a green grass turf park.
No.
Again, this is a natural native plantings, walking paths, but to reflect the foothills above and to blend in with kind of the landscape.
Where are we at on the cemetery? I mean, how much capacity? I mean, I don't know.
Oh, we're at least, 30, 40 years out on the cemetery? At least that. So
Okay.
that was part of, again, as we, took stock of how fast the cemetery was filling up. Again, there are many more cremations than there used to be, that we feel like we're in good shape. And again, I guess what the triggering point was for saying we need to go ahead with that. The cemetery seriously needs an upgrade to the irrigation system. Right now, it's not automated, so once a week they have to go around the staff and put those manual heads on the system. Very time-consuming, labor-intensive. So again, the sale will go entirely into the perpetual maintenance fund, and our first project, hopefully a year from now, will be to start automating that irrigation system, which for the acreage of the cemetery is a huge project, but needs to be done.
So Mayor Daines, I know the park is a ways away, but that currently is off-leash dog park. Is there an intention or thoughts as to whether or not that would remain?
It's not going to remain an off-leash. There has been some discussion, do you create a fenced area higher up? So that's something we'll be discussing with the neighbors. Again, as part of Lundstrom Park, they did not want a dog park area. A few people have used the natural area.
Actually, quite a few people.
There are quite a few. So again, do you create a more formal fenced area as part of that? But we'll ask for input from the neighbors and work on that going forward.
Mayor,
Do you want to mention the substation?
Oh, one other item that we were waiting on. We thought we were going to have to put a new substation in the park. Obviously, that was not an ideal location, but we did not have any other options. But staff, myself, the power department, we worked hard with the university. They have a parcel. We so appreciate their cooperation, and they have agreed to lease us a site. It's essentially north and down below of their housing, so it's west of 12th East, kind of in a tucked away location. We'll also be putting some transmission lines underground to get there to make it as less obtrusive as possible. It is fairly expensive to bury transmission lines, but we've agreed to do that. So we both made some compromises. The Blighton Power Department came up with some additional funds, and I know the neighbors are thrilled about that, and we're very appreciative of the university's cooperation on that. So.
Thank you so much. Ernesto.
excuse me.
Similar question to what Amy was saying. Any idea when park could happen? Or
We are planning on doing, I think the schedule is to spray for some invasive weeds because there has been some area disturbed. There are invasive weeds. We'll spray for that this summer. We'll start, in fact, Russ has already talked to someone about coming up with a specific site plan. We will need an irrigation system installed, even to get native low water plants going. So we were hoping maybe by this fall, Russ, right, to start some work with the rest being next spring. So again, some weed control this summer is the plan, fall initial work, spring the remainder is the plan.
And the funding for that does not come from the sale of the property, correct? Because all of
No,
those
the
funds go to
property, the
cemetery.
funding has to go back to the cemetery perpetual care fund. But Russ, as he's preparing his budget right now, and we've talked, he is putting money in the budget for that park, and we're soon going to meet with the neighbors to discuss a different name because we don't want it called the Deer Pen. So Jeannie sent me some great ideas. If you have other ideas, or there's some other good name possibilities. We'll work on it.
Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, Mayor, those through the years or months that we've been talking about this, concerns with heights of houses, the view shed, basically, the blockage of views to the mountains, fencing, so forth. What, is there some restrictions on the development of the homes?
Part of what we did back in 2016, we did codify certain height restrictions above a certain level on the mountain. So a number of homes up there have already been affected by that. That will clearly remain in place since it's in code. We have talked about what to do about fencing along the park, and I think the conclusion we've come with is that when we sell it to a developer, there would be a deed restriction required that would not allow chain link nor vinyl fencing adjacent to the park. Again, some people may want their yards open to the park, some may want a wrought iron fence, some may do some retaining to deal with the levels, so we won't mandate that there has to be fencing or no fencing, but we will say no chain link and no vinyl fencing is the thought right now.
And there's also some color restrictions too, along with that ordinance, you know, with respect to, it can't be bright white. It has to sort of blend with a little bit more with the landscape, so.
Again, the language on that in the code is a little bit challenging to.
So that's in the code, not in a deed restriction or anything like that?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's in the code for any home that's built up there, whether it's in this subdivision or not. Is that everything?
Great.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Mayor.
So again, public hearing, but no vote needed.
Okay. So no vote? No vote.
Correct. Just the hearing.
Okay. Do we need to open that up to the public? Yes. Okay, so at this point, we'll open that up for public comment. Anyone that would like to comment on this property from Logan City, now is your opportunity. If you want to take the opportunity, please use the hand sanitizer, sign in, and let us know who you are.
We did receive an email after our meeting started
Yes,
today.
yes, thank you.
Specifically towards this. I don't know if you want me to read that.
Would you please?
Part of
I
public
think the
hearing.
mayor kind of addressed most of the questions in there.
Since it is a public hearing, and
Yeah.
so, and she wrote this
Go
at
ahead.
5:31, so this is from Maria Rodriguez, who lives at 2002 Mountain View Lane, which is in the area of the deer pen. Dear Mrs. Daines, I am extremely concerned about the sale of property at Deer Crest and the development plans that the City of Logan has been seriously reviewing in the past few months, including an electrical substation as of February 2021, no longer in action, and now new community development, especially since we consider the City of Logan's plans for the area to be quite disparate and established with an extreme sense of urgency. In January 2020, I personally contacted Mr. Russ Holly, City of Logan Senior City Planner, and requested specific information, including maps with plans about the City of Logan plans for the Deer Pen subdivision. His reply read, he was not sure what the city plans were right now. Given that the current plats considered by the City of Logan are signed by Steve Earle on 1/28/19, I wonder how it was possible that Mr. Holly was not aware of the city's plans. Was the City of Logan Senior City Plan not aware of this plat in January 2020? Why did not I receive this information when I requested them directly by email? There was no disclosure either by the City of Logan at that time that any plans for a substation at Deer Crest My home value will be directly affected, decreased by this misinformation from the city of Logan. The house we built was designed in February 2020 and built in April and was based on the information we received from the city. The new development by the city of Logan will certainly obstruct the views from our home, diminishing its value. I therefore wonder, are the plans considered by the city of Logan well established, or are they simply an urgent development that will affect generations to come? For example, are water pressure concerns and drainages well addressed by the neighborhood, parking availability to access hiking trails given the private roads in the area well thought? In the same line of the city of Logan miscommunication for plans at Deer Crest, let me point out our home is located at 2002 Mountain View within 300 feet from the area. We have not received the public notification referred to in PC 21-005. Since this is of utmost importance to meet the minimum public noticing requirements of the Land Development Code and Municipal Code, we would like to request proof from the city of Logan that notice was sent to us as property owners within 300 feet from the proposed Deer Pen subdivision property sale. Sincerely, Maria Rodriguez.
I just checked my email. I did not receive that, so if you'd forward it to me, I will have staff, we will address her question.
Sure, she sent it to Teresa.
Okay.
So Teresa's got
That's
it.
the requirement for this, so I'll forward it to, or maybe Teresa forwarded it. I'll do that right now, Holly.
That's something that you and Russ can take care of.
We will answer her questions.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. If there's no other public comment, then I'll bring that back to the council. We don't have to vote on it since it was just a public hearing. Thank you for your explanation, Mayor. I really appreciate that. So, all right, moving on to public hearing for ordinance number 21-04. This is a consideration of an annexation petition filed by Mark Daines on behalf of Paul Campbell for the purposes of annexing roughly 38 acres into the city of Logan at 2200 South and east of 800 West.
Just to note, it said on the sheet here 12.
Yes, but it's actually 21.
I figured that.
Yes. Did some quick editing. Mike, thanks for being here tonight.
Oops. Let me find my. Oh, there it is. Okay, so what we have before you is ordinance 12-04. We are calling it the Campbell Legacy annexation. Make sure I'm on the right one. It's located at 2012 South 8th West. We workshopped this 2 weeks ago. 37.45 acres on the east side of 8th West, and it's north of 2200 South. This shows you a little bit more. Dibley's on the south, Millville's on the north. Logan City, thanks Russ, is on the west side. This is the future land use plan map, the FLUP map. It is planned to be multifamily residential. The adjoining property across the road on the west side is also multifamily, and then commercial around it. And then this is the proposed zoning to come in is MR20, so 20 units to the acre. Copy the plat map. It's in our annexation policy plan boundary. You can just see it right down in here where this little hatched area is. Now, we have had a petition or a protest filed by the city of Nibley. That is actually scheduled for the county's boundary commission review on March 18th at 4 o'clock. So what we would recommend you do is conduct your public hearing and then delay or defer it till the following council meeting, I think April 2nd, April 6th. So let me answer your questions.
So we do not want to vote on it tonight then, or?
You could, I'll look at Craig, but you could vote on the condition upon an outcome at the boundary commission board, or you could just continue it till after that's been heard.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for you too, Craig. Very good friends and business associates with Mr. Campbell. What would you recommend that I do, since this is possibly a conflict of interest?
Well, you disclose your conflict of interest and you can continue forward. But if you feel like you can't be objective, then you could just withdraw.
Okay, or I can just abstain too.
Abstain.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your input. All right.
And Jeannie probably ought to manage it. Isn't she the vice?
She is the vice, so.
Pick it up.
What?
well. So I'm
It doesn't, you can still.
I'm still going to do that. We're not going to vote on it, so I think we'll be okay for tonight. I just want to disclose that I have a conflict. So anyway, anyone have any questions?
So I'm going to bring up the elephant in the room.
There you go.
Do we want to do the public hearing first or after our comments?
Okay, we can do the public
Just
hearing first.
asking.
We can do the public hearing first, fine.
I'm good. If you want to do the public hearing first, let's open it up. If you have a comment about ordinance 21-04, now's your opportunity. If you'd like to make a comment, please use the hand sanitizer and let us know who you are, and please sign in if you have a comment. You scared everybody off, Mike.
It's my job.
Okay. If there are no comments, we'll bring it back to the council. Jeannie, you had a comment.
So, I guess I'm challenged by the fact that not only do we accept annexations, we zone them as soon as we bring them in, and the planning commission has no role in that. And I find that to be disconcerting because it was evident at the last planning commission meeting that they didn't know that the property had been rezoned. And so I don't know why, if it's part of the process or what, that we accept property pre-zoned as something, because that implies to me that they have already talked to somebody about building something, or somebody has talked somewhere, and that we're just making it better, easier. Because sometimes it follows the flip, and sometimes it doesn't exactly. So I would like to know why we do that.
And I would think in this case too, I mean, MR is very general. It could be 12, 9. It doesn't necessarily need to be 20. And, you know, as I was looking at this and reading in also some of those comments from Nibley about their concerns about higher density right across the street, my thought would be, is MR20 the appropriate density for something when there's single-family homes across the street, as far as being a good neighbor if we do bring this into our community? So I'm kind of with you, Jeannie, on the annexation. To me is not problematic, but I'm questioning the level of density if the way it's being proposed to be brought in. So those are my thoughts on it.
Well, I can address the zoning. You're required to place a zone on it when you annex it into the city. And so what we went with, what was suitable for that site, was based on the FLUP, which is mixed residential or multifamily, and then what was across the street. So across the street to the west is MR20. Around it is commercial, which is 30 units to the acre. We also looked at the setting of the site is you've got a number of employment areas just beyond the scope of this. Major employers, you have a highway right there, you've got 10th West extending down. So when we came and looked at this, we said it's appropriate for MR20, but if you disagree, that's obvious, then zone it something different and then force it to go to the planning commission. But aside the zone, when it's come in for annexation, same with Kunzler, when that came in, it was NR6 because the underlying FLUP was detached residential and the area was suitable for NR6.
Well, why, okay,
Well, I mean, why it's MR20 as opposed to MR9 or MR12 or MR40 or 30 or CR or whatever, it's, again, it's.
or just a holding zone.
Well, it's easier to come in under an underlying zone. We don't know what the project is going to be out there. We've never seen a project. But again, it's based on location and context. To the north is commercial, light industrial. You've got rail lines right there. You've got more industrial or commercial to the north. So when you look at the amount of land we have available in the city of Logan, we need to maximize what we have. And quite frankly, if we worry about what Nibley wants us to do, then zone it NR6, because they are very selfish in their respect of what they view should be in their city. We're taking the amount of affordable housing in the valley. We're taking multifamily housing in the valley. They're not. their argument about, well, these residents will use their parks, use their roads. Their residents use our parks, use our roads. So it's really not a valid argument. I think what we should do is zone the site, given what we know about the area and what's best for the city.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So is there, I guess back to Jeannie's original question about, and so when we're annexing property, there's really not a role for planning commission in that as far as recommendations or a review of how it's coming in zoned? It's.
Well, our annexation process, they don't go through planning commission, it goes to you guys directly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that
Right.
really, there's no role for planning commission and.
Just in the underlying flood, they've had a role in that. So if
But
you
again, in this case, it's MR, which is very wide ranging versus, so.
But if we were to annex it, then we would have to give it a zone.
That's correct.
Okay, so that makes sense.
And it has to be a specific zone. It can't just be MR.
Yeah, but-
It could be, it theoretically could be a holding zone.
Well,
We have that zone, that one zone that is sort of, we've used it several times. It's not rec, it's not, well, it might be rec, I don't know.
Undecided.
I can't, it's not at the top of my head right now.
yeah, we have a zone that we use out on the south corridor and it's basically an ag zone. You can apply that and then have them go back into a public process through the planning commission and back to you, if that's what you choose to do. But you are conducting a public hearing on the same level of scrutiny that they are. They won't necessarily see a project, they'll ask the same questions. Is this appropriately zoned? Yes or no, based on the location, based on the future land use plan map.
I'm open for
So do we need a
motion.
So we need a motion to defer this to after so I would move that we defer.
April 6th.
April 6th, that we defer
Just
ordinance.
get a clarification. So we have two issues. One is the annexation and the other is the zone. So we ought to talk about those separately, I guess. Shouldn't
We
we?
all go together.
I know, but I agree with what you're saying. But we're not, well,
we have some time, so we can
yeah.
do a little more research if we want to change that zone. But Amy, you were saying something?
So I would move deferment of ordinance 21-04 to April 6th meeting with a continuation of the public hearing.
Is
I'll
there-
second that.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of continuation until the 6th of April, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We'll continue. Thanks for the suggestion. You're up for ordinance number 21-05, consideration of another annexation.
Another annexation.
Does this one have the protest attached as well?
No.
Okay.
Other than Jeannie's protest, maybe, but that's fine.
I'm really good at that.
This one is, the second annexation is the Carls Jessup, we call it the Kunzler 2 annexation. And it is on the west side of 10th West, on the south side of 11th South, those two yellow blocks. There's actually right-of-way that's included in there above each one of those. There's a little strip on this side right here as well that's included in the annexation. A little bit bigger view. This is the future land use plan map, FLUP. This is detached residential, this whole area, and the DX basically says there's a constraint there, whether it's floodplain, wetland, things like that. These are the two sites. The proposed zoning is NR6, as the rest of the Kunzler property is zoned NR6. We felt it was appropriate. If you disagree, we can do it differently. That's fine. And you asked earlier about the conservation easement along the river. We've been working on that since last year, I believe. I think after the annexation, but the mayor will check the dates. Originally, we had a larger area of easement that's shrunk down to, I think, 46 acres, give or take. They have a project pending right now on the overall property. That's in front of the Planning Commission. And these two properties they need these for the project. Here's what the plat looks like, and it is in our annexation policy plan map. So happy to answer any questions.
So I know we didn't workshop this, so this annexation part is part of what's in front of planning right now then?
That's correct.
It's part of the plat?
Yes.
And R6 seems appropriate, so.
We would think so.
Any other questions for Mike? About this
I
annexation?
wish it could have been NR6 with a lot of constraints for wetland.
Well, the zoning doesn't tease out the constraints. The constraints are there regardless of the zoning, so they'll still have to comply with local, state, federal requirements for wetlands, floodplains, things like that. So,
Good to know. Good to know. I'll entertain a motion or more discussion.
public hearing.
Oh, excuse me. Got distracted. Okay, public hearing, thank you. We'll open that up for public comment. If anyone would like to comment on Resolution 21-05, now is your opportunity. Please state your name, sign in, use the hand sanitizer. I've got that recorded, so I can play it over and over again. All right. Appears that we do not have any comments. I don't think we got any emails on this one either, too, did we? All right. We'll bring it back to the council for discussion and action.
I'll say, I'm just feeling kind of irked about this whole part of the project, so. Oh,
There you go.
so, I I might want to defer it until after planning weighs in on it, but I don't know. I know the parcels are necessary for that project. So I'm not prepared to make a motion on this one right now.
So there was no motion over there?
We have had no motion so far, and I prefer to have a little bit more action than no action, so.
I'll make a motion because somebody's got to second it
There you
or
go.
it dies.
Yes. Go ahead, Tom. So, did you move
That was my motion.
your motion to approve,
2105.
to approve ordinance 2105?
Ordinance approved.
Okay. Do we have a second for ordinance 2105? Okay, Ernesto has seconded. Do we need any more discussion about this annexation? Do we need to vote by roll or? Let's do that. Let's vote individually. Amy, your vote.
I vote no.
No for Amy. Ernesto. Aye. Tom?
Aye.
Jeannie?
No.
And aye for Mark. So ordinance passes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Not so much of a lively discussion, but I think everyone's point was well taken, so thank you. All right, another public hearing. Mike, keep your seat there, one more. So, consideration of proposed resolution approving the CDBG 2021 Annual Action Plan.
Okay, this one's a little, I sent you a cover memo. This is a little confusing from a procedural standpoint. It's just required by HUD. Basically, we are informing the world we're kicking off our 2021 process. It's a little silly, a little redundant, but here we are. And what we're going to do, the annual action plan for 2021 will define projects that we'll fund using community development block grant funds based on our priorities from our 2019 to 2023 consolidated plan. We do infrastructure, facilities, nonprofit support, and then we also do planning. 50% goes to infrastructure, so sidewalks, curb gutter, park improvements, traffic calming, and these are all generally low to moderate income neighborhoods. We support social services, domestic abuse, volunteerism, job training, those things, and that's 30% over 5 years, and these are averages over 5 years, so 1 year it could be more, 1 year it could be less. And there's a 20% overhead for admin and planning. This year we know we're going to get $538,000. We just got the letter this past week, and so this is how the money will break down. And these are guidelines. So when you all meet as the steering committee for this, you will kind of plug in numbers and figure out what goes where. And then the timeline is the application period kicks off today, or tomorrow, excuse me. Your steering committee meeting will be on the 13th. And then the public comment period will run May 1st to June 1st, and then we'll be back for a public hearing on June 1st. So, any questions? Yeah, answer them.
I have a question. We understand there's a certain number of homeless people, and that breaks my heart that people are in that situation. I don't know all the things. I've done some studying on it. Is it possible that some of this effort could go toward alleviating problems with the homeless?
Yeah, it's possible you can use the funding under the second priority for that, but it's not just us saying, let's go fix homelessness. It's somebody who actually works with that, comes forward with us with a proposal that we can actually fund. And it's up to this group to figure out where that fits into the broader scheme. It's not a lot of money that we have to work with, so you have competing interest. So it's up to you guys to make those decisions.
Is the agency that works with that homeless, is that BRAG?
BRAG does. It's what's the coordinating council?
Homeless Coordinating Council, we
Homeless
met
Coordinating
today,
Council, yeah. So there are groups that work with it.
But we can't give money to Bragg, they get their own money, right?
Right.
But there are, like, for example, though, CAPSA is considered, they're the only homeless shelter that we have for adults. For children, the Family Place is considered an emergency shelter, so we do have nonprofit organizations, those two, currently that are in existence, that could apply for that. That is the project for the hotel. Aren't they trying to do a nonprofit status for some of their?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so the conversion of the hotel at Econo Lodge, 400, between 3rd and 4th South.
Yeah, right.
That's being converted to hopefully more low-cost, long-term housing.
Who's doing that? CAPSA?
No, it's a company out of Salt Lake that's been working on that.
They've been working with BRAG.
They've been working with BRAG, and they've been working on the city on compliance with the underlying zoning for it.
We're going to de-annex it, so Jeannie can.
But anyway, Tom, I believe they have a nonprofit arm.
I'd get too comfortable if it weren't for me.
But I do believe they have a nonprofit arm. So that right now they're using, I believe the ground floor is that short-term, which should comply with the commercial, and then the upper floors are longer-term residential. So I know that they're trying to figure out a way to assist with that, Tom. So that might be an organization that would be interested in applying for CDBG funding.
They'd have to apply through a recognized nonprofit.
Nonprofit, yeah.
So.
Questions? So this is a public hearing, but we're not voting on it tonight, is that?
That's correct.
Okay. So this is a public hearing. If anyone here would like to make a comment regarding the proposed resolution for the CDBG funding, now's your opportunity. Hand sanitizer and...
Dr. Gail Yost, I live on First East here in Logan. I'm glad Tom said that about the homeless. I was also on that homeless council meeting today, and there was one person who was trying to start a homeless shelter, which would be an emergency shelter. And that's going to cost money, and that's going to need to be nonprofit. And so if we could make sure that we encourage her to seek out these CDBG funds for an emergency shelter. When I worked at Bragg in the 80s, we needed one then. I was among the first people who actually did count of people in the Tri-County area who were homeless for a whole year. We didn't do point in time, we did for a whole year, and we found that there were over 1,000. And that was about 85, 86 for the whole year. So yes, we have homeless, and we have homeless who are unsheltered homeless, and they need to have an emergency shelter here so that they can, especially during the bad weather, can be sheltered in a reliable place and not hiding out in places that we can't find them.
Thank you for your comment. We have another. So the routine is hand sanitizer, mask off, and make sure it states your name so we know who you are.
Gordon Young with Family Place, Utah. Just again, express our appreciation that the city sponsors these grants and that you have a percentage for nonprofits. It's been helpful to our organization, and we'll hopefully participate in this round of funding as well. So thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. When does it open for
March
this?
Applications start tomorrow, March 3rd. So, and then you guys will get it on the 13th of April.
So I do want to say, in relationship to what Gail said, it has to be a registered nonprofit. So it has to be, you have to have done all of that government stuff. And so it would be difficult for us to address an individual who came to us last week through CDBG, because that process takes 6 to 8 months to accomplish.
Had their ducks in a row already, so.
The other thing we want to mention too is that the way we fund programs or projects, we want to fund things or stuff, but funding salaries really isn't part of the equation because there's no continuity in that. There's no guarantee that next year you can still fund that. So we want to make sure there's continuity in a program. They're going to have staying power. So I'll also say, we just doled out the CARES money for CDBG. We did 2 of those grants. It's about $500,000. The one thing that we didn't do as a city is that we take 20% off the top of regular CDBG to cover admin. So basically covers Debbie's time, but we didn't take any admin cost on the other CARES money. We just felt that was more important to get out there to help people. So,
Great. Any other public comment before we close that?
I'm sorry.
Good question. No, it's a great questions, though. No, really good
Can you put the
questions.
schedule back up just so people
Yeah, that would
understand
be
what
good.
that time frame is for when we're accepting applications?
So they have a month to put applications in.
that's correct.
Okay.
And they get those by contacting Debbie, or are they available on the website? Is it
Put it on the
online?
website or contacting Debbie Zillis.
All right. Wonderful. Any other comments or questions for Mike before we let him go? Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Yeah, and your expertise. Okay. Workshop items. Director Rich Anderson. Can you share budget adjustments with us this time around?
Just one to talk about, 207,849. We talked about it at a previous council meeting. This is the CARES Act funding we received for the fire vaccine program. So that's the only one we just wanted to make sure we're budgeting for it appropriately. If I could just address one issue, because when we talk about homelessness and other issues, something that I'm very sensitive to is making sure that the right constituents are paying for the right problems. And it's not just homelessness, but it's many other issues. When it's a regional issue, we really need to make sure we're using regional resources. Otherwise, the little old lady who lives in Logan is paying for the benefit of, let's say, homelessness and this fact that maybe originated in Nibley or somewhere else because of issues that arose. And so I want to be really, just make sure council's always aware. If it's a regional problem, let's make sure we're trying our best to make sure it's funded regionally and not locally by the little old lady who lives in Logan. The only reason I use little old lady is because it it gets that emotional response.
Because I'm over 60.
Exactly.
So since I'm over 60, does that mean I'm one of those little old ladies?
But you need to look a little more.
You are not over 60.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're not going to help my.
You are not over 60.
Thank you, Mark, I think.
I'm trying my best to compliment you. So.
In the past, Logan has tried to solve some regional problems with local resources, and the worst thing that can happen is everybody lets us. So let's be a little bit careful as we move forward.
Excellent.
And sometimes it's so important to us that we take care of it anyway. But
excellent suggestion for a very conservative financial director. So. Okay. Any questions for Rich other than?
That was pretty easy.
Okay, yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. So, Rich, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Next, we've got a workshop for rezone, consideration of a proposed rezone for the Winder Conley Krebs property. Planner Holly.
Thank you, Chair. Just a second.
This would be ordinance 21-06, correct?
Yes. So this is a property located, at 1200 West and 1400 North. It's approximately 10 acres in size. It's vacant, undeveloped property. It's west of the 10th West Corridor. There's not a lot of development to the south or north or to the west. As you go towards 10th West, there's some development there. The request from Craig Winder, is to rezone from the current zoning designation of IP, Industrial Park, to MR20. The area in 2011 was looked at as the FLUP was adopted, and some of this area was called out kind of as a mixed use, kind of mixed residential area back at that point, and it stayed on the FLUP for a number of years. But when the city went back through and looked at the FLUP from a citywide standpoint and identified 6 areas to amend, this was one of those areas that was amended back to industrial park, as well as the zoning is currently industrial park. So the biggest issue with housing adjacent to industrial uses is compatibility. It's difficult to allow industrial development, which would allow anything from a batch plant to a major, R&D type of facility that has shifts, around the clock. To have that directly adjacent to housing, those types of uses are typically incompatible, as there's noise and other negative impacts that come with industrial park zoning. The other thing to consider is as we kind of deal with COVID and try to figure out the real estate market with commercial uses versus industrial uses, it seems like warehousing and shipping and receiving and some of those things are growing in demand, and so staff's hesitant to lose industrial space in the name of multifamily housing. In addition to that, the Bridger neighborhood has typically expressed numerous times that they feel like they have enough multifamily housing. School districts express concerns about more multifamily housing in the Bridger neighborhood. And so staff recommended denial. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended denial. We did have a few folks that came to the Planning Commission meeting, some of the neighbors that are currently running agricultural operations. They expressed some concerns and issues and some opposition. So that is the project in a nutshell, and I'm happy to answer questions at this point.
So it does, I guess the question would be, why this location for that type of project? What did the applicant state as far as why he was looking at this side of town?
Yeah, thank you for that. So he expressed that this is a growth opportunity. While it is quite a bit vacant, it could be the start of multiple types of residential housing projects out here. as the city grows to the west. The red line is the city boundary, so all the areas to the south and west are unincorporated. And so that was his main point. He also touched on housing affordability, our low supply, which are all valid points. But again, it comes down to location. We just feel like this is not the appropriate area. It's over 5 blocks from the nearest other residential housing community.
And there was some concern expressed as well that, by the planning commission, if I'm not mistaken, that these children in this particular, if this were built, would go to Bridger Elementary, and they would have to cross 10th West every day to get there.
Which is something we hear about, the kids who have to cross 10th West to get to Woodruff.
Yep.
Which is a problem. Any other questions? You answered my question. I was going to ask you where was the closest residential, so you said 5 blocks.
It's on 600 West, 1400.
Okay. It's pretty industrial out there.
So that's Yesco is just to the north of this. I'm just trying to get my bearings.
Yesco is right up here. This is that new UPS or FedEx, shipping facility. This is the RSI drive where like Comcast and a few other businesses are located. This is the applied technology kind of annex campus. That's something else now. Bridgerland's over here.
So Harris Industries is out there.
Yes, Harris Industries, thank you, is right in this area.
Okay.
So for future Logan expansion plan for that unincorporated, or for that county area to the side, it's also IP, okay.
Yes, this is the current version of the flop here.
It's pretty purple.
That's pretty purple.
Go Northwestern.
Go Minnesota Vikings.
Go Cats.
Could put a park out there, Mayor, so.
So I just have, this is a, may seem like a silly comment, but when I started reading through this earlier today, I was like, why is this is the wrong documents? Because all of the minutes and all of the attachments for the RV park were in it first, and I almost called and said, hey, you guys sent us the wrong information. So I know you just put the whole minutes, but I was like very confused for a brief period of time before I
apologize. I've since cut those out.
Okay.
So next packet will get those cut out.
It's like Russ never makes mistakes.
I
Why
noticed
is this
that
in here?
too. I was just
Yeah.
like, did they send us the wrong stuff? But yeah, it's okay. I forgive you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, thank you. Chief Hannick, would you like to workshop resolution 21-13 for us, please?
No.
Nice job with the hand sanitizer,
I didn't
Chief.
even have to remind you.
That's a habit. Really quick, there's a few things that, most of the stuff on the list was previously adopted. There was just a few things that either were new items, new medications, or new supplies, or some of those that we may have inadvertently left off last time. The one especially at the very end, we have adopted a new convenient payment system that allows those that are paying ambulance fees to do them through credit card, and they can set up recurring payments. So that's just a processing fee to us to kind of offset a little bit of that expense. It's not even close to offsetting it, but it will help a little bit. So we ask for your approval on those items. Any questions?
Any questions from the council?
So we're not changing anything that we already approved. These are just
No,
four additional
yeah,
charges.
just those last
additional
five, I
charges.
think 5 or
Okay.
6 items.
I recognize the names of some of these.
It appears there are no questions. So,
thank you.
Chief Hannick, thank you. All right. That was the last of our workshop items. Any other council considerations that we need to talk about tonight that we did not cover? There were some emails that we received. I think we have covered all of those that aren't going to be in the next discussion. you can think of. Tom, anything? Okay.
Although I will say, good news, today's case count, we were under 5%
And
transmission
under 500
rate for
cases.
today,
Yeah.
so it's great to see those numbers continuing to fall. So keep masking, keep using your hand sanitizer, keep socially distancing, even if you've been vaccinated.
Let's get them even lower.
That's right.
Let's get them even lower. All right. Well, if there's no other considerations, thank you all for being here, and we will adjourn our council meeting for tonight.
6 minutes early.
I know.
Congratulations.
It's a great job. I know. We're gonna go there next. Do you need a break for a moment?
No.
Very good. Ernesto, no break. Sure. Good. Okay.
I'm sneaking my peanut M&Ms, I'm good.
No, we will convene the Logan Redevelopment Agency.
You love hitting that thing.
I know, it's like the best. It's like awesome. Amy got it warmed up for me, so. We do have 2 action items tonight. So our first action item is a public hearing for Resolution 21-12. Consideration of proposed resolution approving the use of agency funds for publicly owned infrastructure and improvements in the downtown redevelopment project area. Kirk Jensen, will you please share that information with us?
You bet. Thank you. Thank you. There we go. Okay, the first resolution, which you stated, 21-12, is really about the sourcing of the funds. The sourcing of the funds for the improvements, Mayor Daines will come up here in a minute, and she'll review the Plaza project, which is the second resolution. So this first one, 21-12, really talks about where those funds will come from, as I said. And the idea here is that they will come from other project areas that fall under the administration and governance of the redevelopment agency. For that to happen, and Utah RDA law provides for this, the cost of installation of publicly owned infrastructure and the improvements, in this case the Center Block Plaza, it needs to be determined that benefits the project areas. And in other words, you as a redevelopment agency board need to make a determination that is the case, that this public plaza will benefit all of the project areas, which we believe it does. So that's what's being stated there. Any questions?
So just to clarify for the public hearing, this is discussion. On 21-12, it's discussion of the actual project itself, not the funding for it, because 21-11 is the funding. 21-12 is the first one on the agenda.
21-12 is the first one on the agenda, which has to do with where those funds come from.
Okay. So not the project itself, but where the funds come from.
21-11 is the project, yeah.
The reason we put it in that order is, I mean, if it were approved, 21-11, which is the project, you'd be appropriating funding for that, but prior to that, the funds need to be sourced in, if you will, from other project areas into the downtown RDA.
Okay.
So do we meet those qualifications?
Yes.
Any other questions before we open it up? Okay. This is a public hearing, so if you would like to comment on Resolution 21-12, so this is not the actual project, this is the funding. Now is your opportunity to share those comments. Hand sanitizer, take off your mask.
Just put a sign up.
We're going to make sure everybody knows what the process is. Do you want to comment now, Tony, or do you want to comment on the actual project? So this is just like the fun. This is just like the funding part. So
I guess I just want to make sure that I have that right too, because as I looked at the two of these, I'll admit I was confused as to, is the first one to raise comments and questions about the scope of the project, or is it?
They kind of go together.
Together.
But we need to do one and then the other. So All right, if there's,
Well, my understanding is we can't talk about the project until we've talked about where the funding's coming from.
Right.
So we have to have the funding in place before we can talk
then
about
we
the
talk about the
project.
project, okay? So, since there are no comments from the public right now, we'll bring it back to the council for action.
I move we approve Resolution 21-12 RDA.
I second it.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Resolution 21-12 has been approved. All right. Public hearing for budget adjustment appropriating funds, approximately $4.35 million to fund building demolition and construction of the Center Block Plaza and associated improvements, including stage, administration building, ice rink, splash pad, site furnishings and equipment, and $1.57 million funds for building improvements at 41 and 45 North Main Street. Mayor, share that information with us.
I will give a brief recap since we've talked about this for a long time. As we implement our downtown-specific plan, we are ready to go with the revised center block plans in the footprint of the Emporium and Poco Loco space. We've worked hard to create something beautiful and delightful for our citizens to enjoy, but still within our redevelopment area budget, which fulfills the request of the Historic Preservation Committee and the request of property owners that we stay within the footprint of our buildings and not impact the public parking. The project still features a skating rink, splash pad, and stage to activate the plaza in all seasons. We will keep and refurbish the exterior of Plaza 45 and number 41, and at some point through a public process, we'll put those buildings up for sale, which will allow us to recoup a significant amount of what we're asking you to fund. As you recall, the RDA is different from the city general fund. Money in the RDA fund is generated from increased tax increment from new development around the city and is earmarked specifically for redevelopment projects such as this. We do have reserves in the RDA fund to pay for this project and to assist a variety of other projects that are planned for downtown. You can see from this is just the overall look on Main Street. Kirk, if you want to flip to the next slide, this also gives you a summary of the areas in blue that those are redevelopment area projects in downtown. The little yellow area is where Center Block, but you can see we are working on a number of other projects to meet our goals of revitalizing downtown. So just to go through the slide deck, again, this will be a significant investment in our downtown for generations to come. It does meet our goals of the top 20 outstanding downtown goals. It meets goals of our downtown specific plan, and eventually we hope to connect it with our mid-block walkway, which again is part of the downtown specific plan. So this is the frontage along Main Street. If you were standing on the Tabernacle grounds looking forward, I've had some people concerned about the traffic on Main Street and the access, but if you'll notice, there are lovely brick planters all the way along that facade that will prevent children from running out, into the street. There are the two arched opening ways, but again, those are specific areas. They're directed. The splash pad, as you can see as we go further on, is more in the center. So that was an addition we made to address some concerns. Do you want to go to the next one? Again, this is an interior view of what the plaza will look like. We have some shade structures, some poles that will also support the lights that can go across the plaza for in the winter time when people for skating and in the evening. So again, should be very lively and beautiful at all times. Go ahead. This is a rendering of what the stage will look like. Again, and part of what we have done to get within the RDA budget, a few months ago, the budget came back higher than we had available. So what we did, the changes we made, we made the stage a little bit smaller. And the building, what we call the administration building, it has the public restrooms, which are clearly necessary if you're doing a plaza, a little tiny ticket office for sales. We've reduced that footprint a little bit. The other thing that we did that made a significant difference to the budget is the in-ground sort of skating rink was $1.2 million, which is a big chunk. And we had advised to look at some portable skating rinks. And again, at that time of year, we have park staffs available that could do setup and take down. It takes a little more labor to set up and take down. Maybe, well, we have some pictures at the end of some portable rinks, just to give you an idea, but that saved us like $700,000. So the skating rink is now at $400,000 is the estimate for the skating rink, the portable rink. So we think that was a really great way to still have all the amenities of the plaza, but reduce the cost. Next one. Again, just another view of what the splash pad feature could look like, with the stage in that northwest corner. Again, there'll be another entryway to the parking lot with the gateway to tie in that west entrance. Go ahead. This is what, again, the skating rink would look like, except it would be a little bit raised. You'll see that in a future picture, but we envision an area in the center which could have a little rest area. It could have a fire pit, a Christmas tree in the winter. Again, lights, you can see outdoor dining, summer or winter. You could probably extend it for winter with some of the little propane heaters. Go ahead. That's looking down, again, on what could be the splash pad area during a summer view. Go ahead. Winter, you can see where the skating rink will go. Next. So this gives you an idea of a portable skating rink. This is in Pittsburgh. You can see it just is raised up because they put the equipment underneath, but it still will be the same size. It takes the same amount of space. There are a couple other shots of some other great rinks. That's in Indiana. Go ahead. Rapid City, South Dakota. Next. So the summary of the budget, again, these are based on numbers from the architect, and the architect sent us two different numbers. He sent us a low number and a high number. We have taken the high estimates to be on the safe side. So this is from a Salt Lake architect. The numbers were done within the last couple of months. We did have our city engineer work on the demolition bid and plan. So the demolition is 1.37. The plaza's estimate is 2.139. The ice rink is the 397,000, almost 400,000. Stage, restrooms, little ticket office is $440,000 for a total of $4.347 million. Now, the buildings which we own, the Plaza 45 and the 41 building, they are on the tax rolls at, what was that, 1.3 million right now?
As of about a year ago.
Right.
About that.
And so, again, we will be redoing the exterior of that building. We've done some demo on the inside just to clear it out so people can see the space. It's a really cool space in there. People can see the possibilities. Kirk's actually taken several potential people that are interested. So again, we will be going through a public process on that. So anyone that's interested will have to submit a bid and a proposal, because clearly the best use for the ground floor would be restaurant and or retail space. So we will consider both the price and the usage as we make that decision down the road. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer those. But again, we've worked on this for a long time. We've refined the details and tried to listen and respond, and I think we're in a good spot with this.
So where are we at as far as the ongoing operating costs for this project, as far as the impact on the city budget down the road, as far as programming and maintenance?
Right, down the road, if we're going to program this full-time, our thought is we will hire an additional part-time person in the Parks Department to run this. Again, the last time we had Merlin Olsen open for skating, which has been 5 years ago, it's been 5 years since we've had any kind of a skating rink. Wasn't the income 20,000 on that? 24,000. So there will be some income from the skating rink that will help with maintenance. Again, there will be some cost to that, and we've been looking at some utility costs for other skating rinks, and if you'd like additional information on that, we can provide that. But there will be some ongoing costs. Again, we'll plant beautiful flowers as we have on Center Street. And again, I think I've heard just great comments about Center Street. I mean, we really invested in that. Again, this is part of our city infrastructure. Center Street is beautiful, it is updated, it's walkable, pedestrian friendly, it's beautiful with the flowers, and we'd like to continue that and connect to this, this plaza in Center Block, which eventually will then connect onto, the plaza that has the courthouse and onto our new library plaza. So some pretty exciting things happening in our overall downtown that will benefit our citizens. Again, this will be I see families, individuals, senior citizens, people of all types will be drawn to this plaza, and we envision, like a giant chessboard that will, for a couple of weeks. And then you'll have foam building blocks that kids can come and play with, and, different games and, the park staff has come up with a list of over 100 potential uses, everything from, yoga in the square in the morning to, anyway, lots of exciting possibilities to give people a reason to come down, congregate, have a gathering space to enjoy their neighbors, enjoy all the businesses surrounding. And again, the data I sent out to the business owners and to council, that Roger Brooks, whose advice is on the downtown, has gathered, is that within a 3-block area of a plaza, there's significant economic impact in a positive way to businesses downtown. So we think it will also generate additional tax revenue that comes back to the city coffers. And again, it is a use of redevelopment funds that we've been building for a long time that are specifically for this type of a purpose. So,
Any other questions? Any other questions for the mayor? Jeannie?
No, we've been talking about this for so long. It's really exciting. It's almost as exciting as the library.
Just a question, sorry. We have talked about this so long. What modifications, if any, are you planning for the parking area behind this plaza?
none, that was the deal. We might, the architect right now shows kind of an entrance that might take a parking space. We'd have to negotiate that with the center block owners, but that was kind of the deal we reached with in discussing with the surrounding property owners, that we had support to do the initial project from some, but a lot didn't want to touch the footprint of the parking. And we did discover that old parking agreement from years back. So we are not, we're not doing anything in the footprint of the parking lot. It will stay the same.
There's a building on First West, and are you keeping it, taking it down?
Right now, we are making money on it. The tenant is still there. They're paying us a monthly rent. We have not decided what to do with that. Again, if we need a little more flexibility with parking later on, if we sell that later on, again, to reimburse the RDA from some of these costs, it's an investment. It's not going down in value, and we're making rent. So we'll decide at a later date what to do with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need to discuss a possible new agreement with that parking area, since that one is, that entity no longer exists. So we need to work, that's probably something we need to work on, so. Okay, who is here to comment on this particular project? I would like to see hands, please. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Any more? Just want to make sure we have time accessible. 5, okay. We've got 5 people. Now is your opportunity to comment. Please use the hand sanitizer. Please state your name, and please sign in as well too. Thank you for participating.
You want to let them know?
Yes, let's do, since we got 5 people, 3 minutes or less, please. Let's keep it at less than 3 minutes.
Tom's the timer.
Thank you, Tom. Would you time? Thank you, Tom.
Might go 3 minutes and 15 seconds here. We'll see what I can do. It's good to be with everyone in person. Exactly 364 days ago, I stood behind this very pulpit discussing the exact same project, the center block with skating rink. And this issue's been going on for a long time, as we all know. 4 years ago, it came up in the mayoral debate. And someone did propose the idea of a plaza and tearing down the Emporium. It wasn't Mayor Dames, though. She said, the downtown-specific plan calls for a plaza, but there's also a budget. There isn't a lot of money for grand capital projects. Instead, my plan is for realistic, sensible projects. And until recently, the projects have been sensible, and I've liked them. We've added sidewalks to some of the neighborhoods that needed them. We've expanded the trail system. And probably my favorite one is the Bridger Bike Park. We got lots of input from the neighbors, and Dayton worked to make it what it is. Now you have a $6 million project on the table. Imagine if just 0.5% of that went to public outreach since this plan's been modified. If you sent out a survey and asked parents what they wanted. I don't have that kind of budget, but I did conduct a poll online and got over 1,000 respondents. Are you interested in what they have to say? They said, we want a splash pad, but we don't want it on Highway 91, managed by UDOT, who has the prerogative to move traffic along as fast as possible. And instead, we could put it over by the transit center. And if we needed a building, we could buy the old Sears building, and we could sell the Auto Valley that was just mentioned on First West to fund it. We want an ice rink. Merlin Olsen is a great place to skate. We could skate under the lights of the temple like our grandparents did. Now that the ice rink is portable, we could put it there and carry on that tradition. We want a stage for concerts and other events, but we're concerned about parking. Events like concerts bring surge traffic, and when we had the Cowboy Partners have their 3-tier parking terrace, that might have been a possibility, but we don't have the parking spaces to bear that kind of traffic. Other cities in our valley have splash pads, and they have ice rinks. I know because I'm at the Eccles ice rink every week playing hockey. But let's not knock the front teeth out of our center block. Let's keep the history there. We don't have to spend millions of dollars to build something people already have. If we truly want to inspire people, I think of like a mom in Preston or a dad in Preston, what's going to bring them to our valley? We've talked about a library for a long time. I brought it up a year ago, in fact, and we haven't built a brick for it yet. But I think with county support, we could build an even better library. We could build a children's museum and have that be part of the library even. And we could fund it on a county level. Just 10 years ago, the county voted on a referendum to fund a countywide library, and 48% of the people supported it.
That's the time.
I just have one more thing to say. Could I finish my thoughts,
please?
Appreciate that, Mark. I think it's gained support since then. And if we don't feel like that is possible, I think it's time to cut our losses after 5 years and months of maintenance and sell it to private ownership. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take all the comments first, and then we'll respond to some of the questions. So, now's your chance.
Good evening. I'm Marty Moore. For those of you who don't know me, my partners and I have the 2 buildings on the northeast corner of the block just north of us, the 3-story red brick building and then the little strip mall on the south end of our parking lot. I have been working downtown for 20 years. We moved into our building, our office, the law office, 13 years ago this month. I have been waiting for downtown to be redeveloped. I have instead watched downtown deteriorate. First, I want to give kudos and a shout out to Mayor Daines. She's making this happen. She's the 3rd mayor I've talked to about this, and it's going. And really, all I want to say is we've got momentum. Let's get it done. We'll do this, and then we'll get some more people living downtown. We'll get some more buildings downtown, some businesses, other businesses, and we will have a vibrant, active downtown. It can be done. And in 5 years, 7 years, it will be way different than it is today. So let's keep the momentum. Thank you.
Thank you. Hand sanitizer, name, and please sign in.
Wendy Hassan with the Cache Valley Center for the Arts, and all I really have to say is YIMBY. Yes, in my backyard, please. Really grateful for the changes that have come to downtown, the Center Street remodel. I can't wait to use it. Can't wait to have people back. And I can see the local community theaters using the stage. I can see green shows. I can see buskers. I can see a pathway, an artistic pathway from that open space into the Lyric Theater, into the Utah Theater, and finally into the Eccles. We need more performance opportunities than we have. People are not able to get enough dates in our theaters. Frankly, we need more audience members to balance those people who want to perform, but we have amazing talent, and I think that it would be well used. The open space is gorgeous, and I think it would be an exciting amenity, and I especially like the interblock walkways and the opportunities to get pedestrian-friendly spaces so that we get out of our cars and we walk around and we patronize the businesses. The Emporium has been a difficult building. It has been a black hole, and we did try to sell it as a city, and that was not successful. So I see real opportunity for making great things happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi there, I'm Tony Johnson. First of all, let's thank the mayor and applaud the mayor for all the effort that she's put forward. It's amazing what's been happening downtown. There's a lot of momentum that's going on, just as Marty spoke to. And I think everything she said is spot on with what it is we need downtown. We need a plaza. The only thing that we offer is the location of the plaza. We've submitted for a project to be located on Center Street that's going to contain 48 apartment units, some commercial space, as well as a plaza that can be as larger than the plaza that's been being discussed. And so it could be programmed and provided very similar to what has been discussed. The second part of the equation is we're interested in keeping the old building. We want to buy the building. We want to redevelop the building. We've offered to buy all the buildings. And we feel like that they're an asset to the city and that we can adaptively reuse those and to be able to turn those into an asset for downtown. We have partners already lined up to put in first-class restaurant into the old Emporium, along with some meeting space and some other uses. So we can, we don't want to have that building knocked out on Main Street, like the front tooth knocked out of out of your face. We just recently completed the rehab of a 50,000 square foot building, the old Board Milk Plant down on 3rd South and 4th West, which is structurally much more deficient than what the Emporium building is. We're able to successfully complete that. That building is now fully occupied, and we look forward to another project of similar size. When it comes to cost and what have you, everything else being equal, the plaza costs are going to be what they are. But if we're looking at $1.5 million in demolition cost, and if we added on to that, the $2 million or $2.1 million that we would pay for it, at least that's what we offered, I think that's what the city has paid for it, that gives us about, what, 3.5 or 3.6 million. The way that we're situated over on Center Street, my partners and I own all of the property where this apartment project and the parking lot would be, or the plaza would be located. And it would cost us about $1.5 million to provide some structured parking to accommodate the needs of my partner. And then we would have, when we start looking at about $3 million worth of cost for the demolition and the purchase, it'll give the city about a net benefit of about $1.5 million to $2 million that could be utilized by the RDA for other projects. So if anything, I think we don't want to stop the momentum, but I think we want to just have a bit of a timeout, and let's have the citizens discuss between the two options, and let's determine what's best. I would throw out to say, a plaza on Center Street, what could be better than walking off Center Street on some weekend, having a band on the plaza facing north, and basically encompassing that whole area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear that when it goes
Yes,
on?
I can.
It goes in my ears.
It's quite loud, Tom. It's quite loud. Okay. Come on up.
Hi, Council. Chris Sands here. I'm in the membership of the 1%ers in that I own about 1% of this center block. So I have a nice old building there and have, thanks to the help of the city, with a facade grant, have made some investments, and I see a lot of that going on. I was a proponent of the residential aspect of the project and the plaza and that sort of thing because I wanted to see, well, for a long time I felt like we need to have more people downtown to have a successful downtown. As I've watched this project evolve, and certainly some of the controversy that has brought us to this point, and then I look at the bigger picture and I see 3 to 6 brand new residential high-density developments happening in the downtown area. I'm delighted. I mean, I think this is a positive evolution of this effort by the city and the mayor, and I'm grateful for the investment by the city in the downtown. And I think this will do a lot to make our downtown unique from a lot of other places here in northern Utah, or even along the Wasatch Front, who may not be able to benefit from the things we have here, which is still a small town feel with a historic fabric throughout the city and a lot of fun and interesting things to do downtown. So I'm looking forward to the activation of this area, and I think it's going to be a great project. And just the picturing myself in that plaza space and looking across to the temple or to the mountains above or to the mountains out west, I think it's going to be fantastic. The one thing that I will say is please don't sell the auto parts building. We don't need more parking. We really don't. I know a number of people, especially Mark, here in the business area, they thrive on retail and a lot of traffic, and you need parking. But I hear it all the time. In the 5 years I've owned my building, I've seen the parking lot full one time, and it was in Summerfest, one of the weekend days of Summerfest. So I hear a lot of complaining about the parking, and I just don't see the problem personally. So I think if we give folks more things to do, we'll find good ways to accommodate their parking needs. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, come on up.
I'm Cole Matthews. I do have a few questions concerning this project. I've grown up in this valley and had many family gatherings and whatnot in the Emporium and the old copper mill. And that is a historic building, and I feel like it needs to be preserved. I feel like it needs to stay in the city. It's what brings historic down to Logan. I've also been concerned on how much we're willing to spend on this budget. I'm a member of the Cache Valley Cruise-In, and when we are willing to spend this kind of money on this and not $10,000 for our citizens to have a 3-day weekend and a parade on Main Street, kind of concerns me that we're going over our limits here, especially on a building, and it's been empty for quite a few years and you haven't got any money back out of it. You had tenants, you pushed them out, and that building has not brought in any revenue. It's cost money to keep it up and whatnot. These are my concerns, as we need to invest in our citizens. We have things. We have a 3-day cruise-in that we bring in a lot of revenue into this city. Food tax, hotels tax, all those things are brought into the city. And this building, it definitely has a lot of potential for it to continue on. As a small business owner that I've just started doing honey, that we would like a small retail space, and the Emporium has plenty of those things in it and is in downtown where we do see a lot of people travel. This building's been there hundreds of years and it's worked, and they've revamped it when they've needed. I don't feel like tearing it down and being wasteful is a good idea. Thank you.
Hey Cole, where do you live by the way? You didn't identify where you live.
I'm in Hiram, yeah.
Thank you for your comment. All right. Any other comment? Let's bring it back to the council, or to the redevelopment agency, excuse me, for discussion or action. We did get some emails that were forwarded to us. I don't think we'll read every one of them, but we did get quite a few emails. Thank you for forwarding those over, Mayor and Teresa, for sharing those with us.
Also, too, I don't know that everybody, I reached out to Hillcrest, since that's the community council that I'm liaison to, and from their chair, he has not received any strong opinions from any citizens. He reached out to the neighborhood Facebook group for comment and has only received one positive comment in favor of the project. So that's kind of my report from the Hillcrest area. I don't know if people have had an opportunity to connect with their local neighborhood councils.
That's a great idea. Like I said, before we get too excited, I'm going to state that I do have a slight conflict since my property is adjacent to this. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that I don't have a vested interest in this, but I do have adjacent property, so.
So you want a motion so we can discuss, or do you want to just go to discussion?
Whatever works for you.
So I would move acceptance of resolution 21-11 RDA.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion before we vote?
So I kind of went back to the minutes, or my personal notes from our meeting a year ago, and kind of wanted to just see what some of those comments and concerns were. And when you kind of take out the parking issue, most of the comments seemed to be pretty positive about things. As I kind of look at this, I know when we looked at it a while ago, there weren't those other housing projects. So at some level, I kind of feel that the mayor's prompting this has really made people relook at downtown and say, yeah, we need bodies, we need people living downtown. So I really appreciate the fact that you've brought this forward, Mayor Daines, because I think that has prompted other developers and other projects to get going. So when you kind of look back at it, yeah, the housing component that was originally there would be redundant now in a way. We've kind of started to achieve it. But those ideas that you've brought to us from Roger Brooks of what are the essential elements that are needed for a downtown, this does seem to tick a lot of the boxes. I appreciate the sentiment of the Emporium and what that means to people and how that's been a part of Logan. I sat through the Historic Preservation Committee where they talked about that idea of the missing tooth concept and what that would mean for the city. I think that these new plans have done what they can to address that, to make it not be that big, vast open space. So as I've looked at this, I think it does help us achieve those goals of helping to bring people downtown and revitalize it, and is in keeping with the RDA in terms of our use of funds to drive redevelopment, to address blight and all of those things. So in my opinion, I think this project, as it's now been redesigned and revamped, is a appropriate use of RDA funds.
I'd like to comment. I've had good discussion, excuse me. I've had good discussions with some people who have other ideas on this, and It's not easy, because we've gone through a long path. Mayor, you've taken leadership on this. So here's some thoughts. Number one, this went out, as far as the Emporium, this went out to bid twice to developers. And the first time we got 0, as I recall, is that correct? The second time, we had the interest of Cowboy couple, and we went down that road, and that was turned around because of the public outcry on that. So I think this is a modification based on some public opinion of the owners on the block, and so I think, it's actually been vetted enough times here. Second thing is, I think as I look at this, one of my main goals, I remember doing a photo essay of our downtown to show some people in another place. And as I looked at the photographs, there was not one person on a sidewalk. And I didn't design it that way. Meaning I didn't take pictures waiting until people got off. I just go, this is amazing. There's nobody on the sidewalk. So I think the goal of bringing people to be active, and I could go through a litany of places that I've lived. I mean, Jordan, you couldn't even find an extra 2 inches on a sidewalk just because it's so full of activity. And we have other communities in the nation that have done this type of thing. I think Boulder's one, there's a number of others. And we're on our way to do something. The idea of bringing people here where they see the skating or the splash pad or whatever the activity is they drive down Main Street and they go, let's go there, let's get the kids, let's come here. So I think it is an attraction or a magnet. The third point is, I think if done properly and continued, Mayor, is that we need to link it to Center Street, because it's a synergistic thing. You can have an activity on on Center Street, and also have an activity on the plaza, so that you have jazz at one and bluegrass at the other, or whatever. And that brings people together because of the interest. And then on the fourth point is that this really is a linkage, or part of a linkage, that was started when the library, current library, and Lou Williams was the mayor, and he had Gar Campbell come in, and he talked about that sidewalk going north and south. I don't know if the sidewalk has worked very well, because there's not a destination, there's not something that draws people. But in one of the major shopping areas down in Salt Lake, I call it a slow street. It's a small street that people go 2 or 3 miles an hour, and they walk along it because it has a lot of interest. And I think we need to have that. I mean, if you think of the linkage, we start when we down at the theater, and hopefully, that's a attraction again. You come north to Center Street, which can have all kinds of activities. And you come north to the plaza, which again is highly active. And if we can go north to the farmers market plaza, by the way, Mayor, in this research that I did, they named Logan as like number 34th, but in their commentary they said that we had one of the best farmers markets in the whole country. So that can only get better. And then, of course, to the library, we're going to have a plaza up there. So there can be a linkage. When we've gone to Vancouver and some other places, what's interesting is going through these linkages, going from one place to the other. And the last thought is piggybacking on what Amy said. This is what the RDA funds are for, redevelopment. It's not for something else. It's for redevelopment. So I'm all in on this. Amen.
Thank you, Tom. Jeannie, you took your mask off.
Well, I can talk. Ernesto, you want to say something?
We want to hear you.
The only thing I'd like to add is that I second or echo what Wendy mentioned, that an additional space for performance arts and would be so nice to have in a central location for the city. I can only think of having multicultural performances and events happen in this location. I'd be excited to see that.
Thank you. Jeannie?
I feel like we've been doing this process for a really long time, and I was in favor of putting the housing, and the parking issue came up, and we had to rethink, and the mayor was gracious and steadfast enough to redo what she had in mind and keep at it. I know people have said that tearing down the Emporium is a terrible thing. The Emporium, I've lived here since 1974, and it's never been a functioning building. I mean, the copper mill was up there, but that's about it. And people say, well, you don't want to cut a tooth out of the building. One of the challenges that I've heard over and over again as students have worked from the university and other places on our downtown and plans for our downtown, one of the things they've said over and over again is our blocks are so big and they're so impenetrable that people feel like they're walking on a highway. This offers a break in that, and I think it offers an amazing opportunity for us to not even just bring people downtown, but show people that it's possible to have that exciting energy in the middle of a huge block. And again, with Tom, referencing what Tom says, you know, we have this interconnectedness. This offers a public space in between a couple of other public spaces where people can go, they can enjoy themselves. We can program it so that it works. And I personally am all in favor, so.
Thank you. When the mayor proposed doing a reconstruction of Center Street, we were a little bit concerned about it. It's hard for business to get shut down for months on end. We're right there on Center Street. But when I saw the plans, I got excited about it. And I found out how much we were going to pay for it, our portion of it, then we were a little bit more concerned again. And as we went through the planning process and I started to see the vision of what they had put together for Center Street, started to get excited about it. Got really excited about it, and as the construction progressed and things became difficult for us, we just kept that in mind that, you know, when it's done, it's going to be amazing. And when we opened up Center Street and had the Christmas parade, I could not have been happier. Could not have been happier. We probably had, what, Mayor, 3,000 people downtown, possibly more. I'm going to tell you, it did not improve our sales one penny. In fact, it probably affected our sales negatively to have that many people in our business on that day, because you couldn't move for the amount of people that were there. But we absolutely loved it. It was amazing. We couldn't really take advantage of it this last year because we didn't have people downtown as much. But I'll tell you, from the people that we have spoken to that have come into our business specifically because they love what we did on Center Street, it's gratifying to know that we helped contribute our own little portion to making that happen, monetarily, but also just participating in it. It is hard to make changes. There's nobody here that knows how difficult that is as much as I do. When we tore down half of our business, my dad about lost it. I mean, it was the most difficult thing that I think he went through as a business owner, because he'd been there for 55 years. He'd seen everything happen there. It was heartbreaking for him to watch those buildings go down. But when he saw our vision of what we had planned and what we wanted to do, and when we started putting those pieces back together, he couldn't stay away. He was there every day to check on those contractors to make sure they were doing the right thing, they were putting it together, because all of a sudden he caught our vision and he saw what we could build and what we could create in that same space that he had worked so hard in for so many years. And he realized it could be better. It could be way better. And I'm right there with Jeannie. It's like I've grown up with JCPenney in that building and the Emporium, and ever since they converted it, it has been difficult. There has not been a business other than the copper mill and the hair salon that could survive in there because of the compartmentalization of that building. And so it's hard to make changes. But if you'll catch the vision of what's going on and see what the mayor has been able to do on Center Street and the plan that we've got to build downtown with residential and bring people and make things happen, you will be happy that we invested a little bit of money into downtown to make it happen. When you catch that vision and see what the potential is, I get it. It's tough to watch things go. Sometimes you can see what the potential is to be greater. And I think there's some great potential for downtown and what's happening. So it's my personal story. I'm open for a motion.
I'd call,
You got-
yeah, we got one.
You got
Oh, we did get a motion, that's right. Oh, thank you.
about 30 minutes.
I'm sorry. I was caught up in the moment, so. Are we good to vote? We're good to vote? All right, I'm gonna vote by roll call. Tom?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Ernesto?
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain. Looks like it passes. Resolution 21-11, Artie. I have a bit of conflict, Tom, so.
I made the noise.
Oh, you. So it's like I said, I told everybody it's my property's right there, so.
I know, I made the noise.
So, Mark, I'd just like to thank all of the individuals who came tonight, who weighed in. I mean, it's difficult in a city of 50,000 people to find agreement 100%. So I do really value the alternative ideas and the suggestions, and please don't feel that if things did not turn out the way you did, that it doesn't mean that your input and your advice and your considerations of things aren't important to us. But I think, as Tom pointed out, it's been a long process, and several of the emails we got were kind of like, let's just do it already. It's kind of like Nike was hitting my email box today. So I think, but again, just really thank you, everybody, for being here tonight.
A lot of comment, and they were very well considered, everybody's comments. So thank you for coming, thank you for your comments and participation, and our meeting is adjourned.